For everybody that's on Facebook right now watching this live, welcome to the third episode of Brandon Robertson Soul Hour. I am your host, Mr. Brandon Robertson. I am live all the way down from Southwest Florida, and I have my special guests here with me. I have three gentlemen who I have the utmost respect for. Not only do I have the utmost respect for these gentlemen, they are wonderful musicians, they're wonderful men, wonderful fathers, and it is an honor to have them on my show. And I want to introduce the world and everybody that's viewing this right now to the fabulous jazz bass, Tampa Bay jazz trio, La Lucha. La Lucha. Guys, how are y'all doing today?
I'm doing good.
Well, thank you.
So I want to go and I don't know who wants to go first, but I'll go down the line so then that way everyone can see who's who. Everyone can know who you're going to be hearing from, the members of the band, and what instruments they play, and where they currently are right now. So who wants to jump in first?
We can go alphabetically, I guess. My name is Alejandro Arenas. I am the bassist in La Lucha, and I am originally from Colombia, South America, and I've been in the United States for about 19 years now, so about half my life. And in addition to being a professional musician, I teach for the MIRA program at St. Petersburg College.
I'm John O'Leary. I am from Mexico. I moved here to America, to Tampa, in 1998. I came from the Yucatan Peninsula, and I've been here ever since. I play piano in La Lucha, keyboards, and yeah. How about you, Marky?
I'm Mark Feynman. I'm the drummer in La Lucha. In addition to being a professional musician, I also teach music at St. Petersburg College. And I was born and raised in Clearwater, Florida. And I'm currently living in St. Petersburg, Florida. That's where I'm at right now.
Excellent, excellent. And for those that don't know, I've had the pleasure, with the exception of Alejandro, since he and I play the same instrument, but I've had the absolute pleasure of performing several times with Mark and John, and it's always been a wonderful dynamic of beautiful chemistry. I can still recall the first time hearing these guys play. I think it was in 2011 or 12. It's been a while. It's been a long time that we've known each other, and just to see the growth of this group is beautiful. You know, you rarely see nowadays that you have groups together that are still together and are putting out records. It was a big thing, you know, back in the 80s and 90s. You know, we had groups, you know, that was the thing. Yeah. But everybody now kind of just has solo acts, or they'll just put configurations of different folks together. But La Lucha is there for the stands. They have a strong, prominent following in the Tampa Bay area. So I'm very happy to have these guys on the show. Now, in the past few days, everyone has been witnessing what's been going on around the country. We've witnessed, you know, an unlawful and a very horrific and a disgusting murder of an unarmed black man by a Minnesota police officer. We've also are dealing with this viral pandemic that is a global pandemic, the COVID-19, that somehow has been put on the shelf right now because of what's happening. And today's episode, I want to dedicate first and foremost to the king, Mr. George Floyd, and to his family, and to everybody that's in his respective community that was involved in his life, that was impacted. So I send my love in regards to those folks, and all of the people in Minnesota, even in the state, that are kind of dealing with this turmoil at the moment. But before we get into that, the whole premise and the theme of this show is called the Soul Hour. And so we get into three records that the band, the three guest artists here, they've picked three records that kind of solidifies three key words that I came up with that is kind of the encompass of this show, which is life, perseverance, and freedom. And all three of these words have a strong and meaningful impact of what we're dealing with currently today. So I just want to spend the next maybe 10 minutes talking to the group about the three records that they chose, and you'll get to hear from each individual and why did they select that particular song and what the meaning of those words in comparison to that particular song. So I'm going to start off with Mark, and one of the songs that you guys selected was a song that's obviously been popularized by the great Marvin Gaye, "What's Going On." And this version that you picked, though, was Donny Hathaway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here, and we're just going to listen just to a little bit of it and kind of get an idea of what Mark was coming from when he decided to pick this song. And the word that he selected was life. So this is what this is Donny Hathaway version of "What's Going On."
Can't hear anything yet.
Yeah, I don't think the audio from the computer is coming through.
Can't hear anything?
No, not yet.
Nothing? Oh, okay. Hold on. Let's hold on. Let's see here. Sorry, everybody. I did it last time. I don't remember how I did it.
I think when you open the share screen, at the bottom, there's like a little square that tells you share computer sound as well.
Oh, yes. There we go. Thank you, Alejandro. All right, everybody. Let's try that one more time.
That's too many.
Oh,
There we
y'all hear it
go.
now? Yeah, there we go. Let's go back.
Mother, there's too many of you right here. Brother, there's far too many of you right here. You know we gotta find a way to bring some love in here today. Father, we don't need to escalate. War is not the answer. Cause only love company. You know we gotta find a way to bring some love in here today.
So tell me, man, why did you guys select that particular version?
Oh, well,
Willie
first of all,
Weeks.
thank you so much for having us. Yeah, Willie Weeks on bass is unbelievable. So as you said, that this is a song made famous by Marvin Gaye. It was written by Al Cleveland and Obie Benson. It was actually this version of Donny Hathaway was recorded only months after the original version was recorded and released on Motown. So it wasn't like it has become a standard and they decided to record their version. It was only about 8 months after. This live album recorded in 2 locations, in the bitter end of New York City and also in Hollywood at the Troubadour. The first thing that strikes us, and I want to say that it wasn't just me that selected this tune, but 3 of us regularly listen to music together. If we're traveling together, we're always sharing music. Even if we're not traveling, we're sharing music with each other. And this is one album in particular and one song that has kind of crept into our actual playing. We base an arrangement off of this. And from the moment this song starts, the first thing you hear is the audience. In addition to the music, there's such a sense of community in this whole recording. I mean, people are singing along, they're clapping along, they're there's just like it's such a joyous occasion, and not all the songs are joyous. Some of them are about love, and this one in particular, which we're giving it the key term life, is what is it about? Well, Obie Benson wrote the song for what was supposed to be the Four Tops in his band, and it was based upon an experience that when he got off a bus in Los Angeles, he had seen some riots happening, and there was cops beating African Americans. And he felt very moved to write these words and brought it to the band. And they said, no, it's not a love song. We do love songs. And it was passed forward, and it got into the hands of Marvin Gaye, who was producing a record for another album. And Marvin Gaye was known for doing love songs. Same with Donny Hathaway. But this movement of music was so much stronger to speak and to sing about racial inequality. And so this version speaks to us, wildly and loud because of the sense of community. And, musically, I mean, it feels so good. It sounds so good. Yeah. But lyrically, it is such a strong message. And in addition to it being about what was happening at that time, you can relate it to what's happening since then, and you can relate it to what's happening from then before, going back to the beginning of American, Black American music. Sure. And it also goes to what's happening today, as of last night and this morning. But yeah, this song is definitely a story. It says so many things about life and specific communities in America, and that's why we chose this song.
Yeah.
Cool.
And those lyrics, if I could add, those lyrics still ring so true today. I mean, brother, there's too many of you dying. Mother, there's so many of you crying. I mean, it's as if it was written today and somebody went and took it back to the past,
Right.
Yeah, Marvin Gaye's brother had just returned home from Vietnam. He had close friends that were Black that died for this country, and he comes back and he's seeing, his brothers being beaten on the street and his sisters, and it was unacceptable. And Marvin Gaye really made a big change, and he had a talk with the head of Motown Records, who actually did not want to release he didn't want to release it. He didn't think that was a message they wanted to send out, which has been probably the highest selling song for Motown Records and most well known. Yeah. But Donny Hathaway doing this version is amazing, because they really do open up, and it speaks to us as jazz musicians as well, because the improvisation, not only on this song, but the whole record is so strong, and it's gorgeous.
Yes. And what's funny is that, when this was all going on, this, back in 65, I think that was like the highest of American troops that got sent over to Vietnam. It was like at the peak, and by the time we realized how many Americans had died in that war, and it was another war, because you had the post-civil rights movement coming out of this, transitioning into the 70s. And when you had the different organizations like the Black Panthers, who was really taking stands, I mean, it was so much political stuff happening during that time frame. And, even now listening to this song, it's like, what's going on? Like, do we even know what's really happening? Like, can y'all really see what's actually happening right now? So so this song is definitely has a stance in the current times that we're currently in right now. So yeah, thank you for that, Mark. So for the next one, I believe the next one, who had the next one here? Was it Alejandro? Oh yeah, no, it was John. Yeah, so John, they selected Isaac Hayes, my man Isaac Hayes. Mr. Isaac Hayes, Never Could Say Goodbye. Never Could Say Goodbye. I'm just gonna see if I figured out how to share it now, so now I know how to do it. Optimize sound, great. So I'm gonna let that commercial play for a little bit, and then I'll take the sound off and skip, and boom. Can we hear this?
say goodbye. I never can say goodbye, no. Even though the pain and heartaches seem to follow me wherever I go, though I try and try to hide my feelings, they always seem to show. And then you try to say you're leaving me, and I always have to say no. Tell me why is it so that I never can say goodbye? No.
Let me tell y'all something. That is a vibe and a half. That is such a vibe. And let me tell y'all, for those who are watching on Facebook Live right now, don't worry, we are going to get into the topics. We're going to get into the subject, but I needed to ease us into these topics because music is healer of all. And when you have songs like this, when you hear that, it's hard for you to really have an angry look on your face listening to this song. It really is. It's hard for you to just be like, hey, come on, man. That's not doing nothing. But John, your thoughts, John. Why did you guys select Never Could Say Goodbye by Isaac Hayes?
Well, the word that we selected for this song is perseverance. Mm-hmm. Now, when you read through the lyrics, this is about a relationship that is not 100%. This relationship is not making you happy 100%. There's some work that needs to be done. There's a place that every time I think I've had enough and start heading for the door, there's a very strange vibration piercing me right through the core. So it's like, I love you and we have issues and we need to work through them. And I can't let you go, don't want to let you go. I never can say goodbye. And I feel that the perseverance of learning to love each other in a relationship is very much like what we have in America, where we need to learn how to be anti-racist. We need to learn how to come together as a community and how to embrace each other's cultural differences and embrace each other's bodies and how they're different, and to find beauty in our differences. And this song is about the clash between how you feel in one moment and the work that you need to do to get to where you want to be.
Right.
And thought, wow, that is perseverance right there, to feel uncomfortable and be okay with that feeling and move forward anyways.
And what's so interesting now, when you persevere through something, that means that you have overshadowed an adversity that no longer exists in your domain. So you have, like you said, you have moved forward from that, and you have found a means of life to not let that stop you from, where you want to go. And
it might still be there, but it's under control.
And if I could speak very openly, that's how I feel as a Black man, is that I may feel that way, but I have to feel control. I have to feel like I have to control certain attributes that I have that I cannot express. Otherwise, it's going to be misguided, or it'll be misleading to people who may not understand. Yeah. And so our country needs to persevere through this very ugly monster that we're all facing, which is ourselves. Because at the end of the day, everybody in America is looking at themselves in the mirror, and they're asking themselves, am I really that prejudiced? Am I really that racist? Do I really have these biases that I can't seem to shake? And so like the title of the song, if you can never say goodbye to it, it's always going to be there, right? It's gonna be in your internal memory forever, and it's something that you're gonna just start continuing to pass down to generations. So yeah, John, thank you for your explanation on that one. That one's a great selection. Now Alejandro, You're up, my brother. So
All right.
you guys selected a tune that I had never heard of before. Do you feel it? Tu lo sientes. I've never heard of that. Did I say that right? I hope I said that right. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you got it.
Hey, that's part of my my bilingual.
There you go.
But yeah, so Joe Cuba, can you just give us a brief background of who he is? I've never heard of this person. And El Barrio, how do you say the name of the record?
El Barrio.
Barrio.
I think, it's El Alcalde del Barrio.
Mm-hmm.
And this is on a few records. Joe Cuba was a New Yorican. So somebody of Puerto Rican descent, born in New York. And I wanted to talk briefly about salsa. The term salsa is basically, salsa was born in New York, basically, because it was the one place where all of these cultures, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Colombians, all of these people met and really started playing this music that, had mostly Cuban roots, but they started bringing rhythms from their own parts and they mix it up, much like jazz in a sense, because a lot of these rhythms were, of course, from Africa, but they were also in certain islands and in certain different places, they were treated differently. So when they brought them together, salsa was born. And salsa was a mixture of all these things, guaguancos, cha-cha-chas, bomba, plena, all of these different things. So Joe Cuba was one of the first guys that kind of started bridging that gap. Okay, cool, we have the Latin stuff here. It's pretty established, but then, there's I'm an American too. So, there's a little different soul that's inside me apart from that. So he was one of the first ones that created Boogaloo. And Boogaloo was basically the mixture of,
soul.
Except soul and like Latin soul, and it had like the backbeat and it had that bounce to it that was very American, but also Latin, So Joe Cuba was one of the first guys that kind of started doing that. He did famously, that's where I'll Never Go Back to Georgia. That was a Joe Cuba song. It's a chant that I know Dizzy at some point, it's kind of like being going around, but it was about their own experience touring the South, because he, if you look at Joe Cuba, he looked very much white, but his singer was Cheo Feliciano, very famous Puerto Rican singer, who was black, and a lot of the members of the band were mixed, so the reason we picked this specific song, we haven't played it yet, but that's kind of the overview of Joe Cuba. He represented that he represents me in that sense. I was born in Colombia. I am, Latino, but I've been here just as long. I've been living here for 19 years. So next year is going to be 20 years. And I moved here when I was 20. So it's something, it's funny because Mark's actually the one that introduced me to this song. And it just kind of,
there you go.
it just bridged a lot of things for me and I can get a little bit deeper into the song if you want to listen to it first. Then.
Yeah, let me, I'll play a little bit for the audience so then that way they know what you're referencing to. Oh, let me do this. Okay, it's checked. I have to make sure that it's checked off. Let's see here. All right. And can we hear that?
Yeah.
You can already hear the soul. You got the Hemi.
Do you feel it? Yes, I feel it. I feel my beloved barrio, my ghetto. Do you feel it? This is a story of where I was born. No man's land. Between 115th Street and 125th. Everyone today is talking about El Barrio, their ghettos, about the hard times they had. We had hard times, but we had good times too. I can remember the summer. Summertime was beautiful. The days were long. We didn't need any ocean breeze. To the left, we had the Hudson River. To the right, the East River. Well, wanted to refresh ourselves, who needed the ocean? We had the pump. You remember the Johnny pump? All we needed was a good screwdriver and a can, and we were refreshed. At night, the breeze was beautiful. Tar Beach, that was our meeting place, and we had fun galore. When I went home, my mother was beautiful. Our food was really together. Rice and beans, that's our soul food.
That's
with
right.
A little cuchi fritos on the side. And for a little dessert, we had Mavi, the grooviest tasting drink you want to try. Everything was beautiful to me. My querido, my beautiful barrio, my ghetto.
I feel it in another way. I feel the pressure that keeps us down. Yes, I feel it, baby, but I feel it in another way. El Barrio is a place that's uptown.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna like retract my last statement about what's going on. Yo, I know that was going on. Never Can Say Goodbye. Yo, that one has a vibe. Like, and you know what I love about salsa music? I like that salsa music, the simplicity of salsa music is a steady backbeat rhythm. And Alejandro, you and I can attest to this since we're bass players. When you lock that rhythm in and you can stay consistent with that, as a bass player, I'm gonna step back for a second so y'all can see. I'm just gonna describe to y'all what it feels like. When you're a bass player and you get to play salsa and you're just like, like it is people in the audience lose it because they're just like, the bass player's like really into that groove. And it's like, and Alejandro can attest to that because he's probably had that happen before. It's like,
oh man, yeah.
Why would like? Do you feel it? Oh yeah, we felt it. Oh yeah, we really felt it.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, I can understand why. And you said the word of freedom. Now, freedom. What would freedom have to be in relation to this?
So obviously, you know, the song kind of has two parts, right? It has the first guy kind of reminiscing about El Barrio and what it meant for him. So to me, that kind of speaks to the freedom of childhood, where you're exploring life without any. I mean, you have your own stresses, but they're usually minor in terms of what adults experience. And how you got the pump, you got everything at your disposal to have fun and to make your life what it is, and it still feels like home. But there is a point where you have to, basically, there's the second half of the song where he says, I gotta leave this place. There's oppression here. There's nothing for me here anymore. I need to leave. So to me, that's the other freedom, to be able to realize that and be able to move forward to a different place and find a better life. So not be stuck in the same place that you're there and be bound by your place in society, but to be able to break away from that. And even though it's home and it's what you know, to still be able to look for a better place for yourself. So to me, it's finding that freedom. It's to be able to it's like I said, the freedom of childhood, and then being able to find your freedom, move away from that. And it, to me, it speaks very, very, it's a way for me to see, I'm from Colombia, and we can get a little bit more into this when we open up the subject. But I am, like I mentioned, I'm an immigrant, and I have two homes, and I come from a very, very broken country, a country that I love dearly, but I just couldn't wait to get the hell out of there.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to be able to have that opportunity and to move here to the United States. Well, the grass, the grass is always greener. But every place has issues. Every place has issues, and as we'll get into later, we'll get a little deeper into that. But my perception as an immigrant is that, some people see me as brown, some people see me as white,
Right.
and it's, the reality is that I'm a mixture of a bunch of different things. I did 3andMe last year, and
Right.
there was it was all over
Yeah.
the place, because in Latin America, there was no race was untouched by
Right.
the invaders. So it's an interesting thing, that song speaks to me because it's in English, first of all, but it has that Latin,
Yeah.
the Latin basis to it. And, I am now firmly rooted in the United States. I have 3 kids. I married an American woman, native of St. Pete. And I identify a lot with the American culture, for sure. But
Right.
of course, I'm Colombian too, so I identify with that culture as well. And yeah, well, we can expand on that a little bit later.
For those that have never been to La Teresita in Tampa, you're missing out on life.
La Teresita is
Yes, you're missing out on life. If I grew up in West Tampa, so I was like literally like a half a mile from La Teresita. So I ate there so much. I put my wife onto that, and she's like, every time we go to Tampa, she's like, we gotta go by La Teresita before we go back home. So trust me, I know. So everybody, here's the part of the segment where we want to really get into it. And I had a wonderful, healthy, very enticing conference call earlier with my guest, and we were getting into some heavy stuff. And I said, guys, we got to save it for the show because I want people to know that, they got to hear us out here. But as of right now, everybody that's tuning in, and if you are tuning in, I would like to ask for you to please share this video with others so they can chime in and they can view this as well. Right now, we are facing a division within America. As we all know, not less than a week ago, or almost about a week ago, we had a horrific murder occur in Minnesota with a police officer who was kneeling on the neck of an unarmed black man named George Floyd. And in the video, you see for 8 minutes a very slow and painful and enduring death that this man had to succumb to. And he not only was begging for his life, the people that were standing there and witnessing him taking his last breaths, all can feel the lifeless coming out of him. They can feel it flowing through their bodies, and the anger and the enragement that those bystanders were yelling at that police officer to get off of his neck. The medics, the EMTs who came over to try to assist Mr. Floyd, had asked the officer, please release your knee from his neck. And yet he kept inching down slowly more and more. He kept pushing in more and more. And this has outraged everybody in America right now. Everyone is infuriated. They're angry. Black people are angry. Black America is tired of it. We are tired. We are sick and tired of being oppressed, and our voice is not being heard. Colin Kaepernick took a stance by himself, one man by himself in the NFL in need during whenever they did the national anthem.
And he was called a bastard.
Yeah, and people said he was disrespectful, he was anti-American, he doesn't love this country, he needs to leave, go back to where you're from. All these derogatory terms and slurs that were being thrown in his direction. And now I take that same symbol of peace now as a rope around my neck that got put around Mr. Floyd's neck and tightened. And so if I had to tell my viewers, if you asked me, do I think and feel right now, currently, as I'm talking, if I feel that I am a born free American, I would tell you no. I would tell you that I was born into slavery, into modern day slavery in America, with the exceptions of not being bitten by dogs, sprayed by hoses, or being lynched by a rope. Instead, I have been oppressed and gentrified in my communities. I have been stripped of my identity because I cannot be Black in America. I can't be my own authentic self because if I do so, I am inferior and I'm a threat to society. If I speak intelligent, then that means I have to be questioned on my authority to make sure that whatever I speak is proven accurately. And these are things and biases that we are just tired of. We're tired of it. Do I condone looting and rioting? No. That's punk stuff, like I said in my video. That's a bunch of punk stuff. However, if I had to take my feelings, my personal feelings out of the picture and I look at the grand scheme of things, can you really be mad at people right now for doing it? Now, I'm not condoning it, so please don't take my comment out of context. What I'm implying is that people who are looting and rioting have either been two classes of people who just have no regards for property or destruction, or you have people who have been bored for the last 3.5 months, cooped up in their house because of COVID, and now they have an excuse to cause havoc around the city and the nation. Now, those are just terms and things that I've read online that's been thrown out there that people are assuming. But now, when I look at the situation, I had time to assess and process everything. The fact that that police officer had his hands in his pocket and he looked so comfortable scared me to the fact that we have given too much power to our law enforcement and our authority. We have given them too much power and credit for things that they have not done for us. I pay, and everybody who's viewing my Zoom and everybody who's watching this on Facebook Live, remember that your tax-paying money is providing for these law enforcement employees. Now, not all police officers are bad, just as not all white people are bad. But when you look at the whole picture of it all, it's very hard not to think that way. If you're Black, it's hard not to think that way. So I want to open up the conversation with my guest here, and I'll start with John. John, I'm going to ask you, my first question is, how do you feel about the current state of America with the George Floyd incident being publicly displayed to the world?
Well, look, this is not new.
Mm-hmm.
This has been happening for a really long time. And there have been lots of people speaking out about police brutality for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And because of technology and social media, the video evidence that is available is opening the eyes of our broader community, of our country, and saying, you see, we weren't crazy. We weren't making this shit up. This is real.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, it's like catching on, and people are like seeing this. But I mean, this is not new. This is the current state of America is the same state of America that we've had before. And I mean, there has been some progress, right? We started with abolition, and then, and then we had the civil rights movement. So sure, there is some progress, but I mean, we're nowhere close to where we want to be as a society. Right.
I wanted to jump really quick, mention one thing about that, because as far as filmed incidents, there's been a few the past few years that have been made public as well. Mm-hmm. And the common denominator in all of those was that there was impunity for the cops that perpetrated those crimes. So for this guy to stand there with his hands in his pockets, that's basically saying, I know nothing's going to come out of this. I can get away with this, because even if I make it to court one day, the likelihood of me getting off free, that's fine. And I think that's why everybody you know, starting of course with the African American community, but everybody should be pissed off about that, you know, because of that precisely. That impunity has gone on far too long.
Right. And you know, or actually, let me ask, Mark, do you want to say anything? Did you want to chime in on that or?
Yeah, I mean, specifically to this officer or that police department, or even across the country and world, how many people had he done this to prior that weren't filmed? Talking about what Alejandro was, what John was speaking of. He had obviously had previous offenses that had been documented. How many more people had been humiliated or pushed or shoved or had their knee on their neck? And it's not only that community, but it's happening everywhere. And you mentioned about, you know, not all cops are bad. I think there's a, you know, the great philosopher Chris Rock talks about bad apples. Right. And, you know, there's a few bad apples, you know. Well, Chris Rock says he's had a bad apple. It's a little tart. We need to not have any bad apples. If you said that about the airline industry, it's like, hey, listen, all of, you know, this pilot you have today, they land the plane. Not all our pilots can land the plane, you know. So there's going to be some policing in our police department. That's one very small part of this systematic oppression that we need to look at. Yeah, it's a very small part.
And you guys are right, because you know the other point that I want to make too about all of this is that if you look at all these filmed incidents that have happened to occur to unarmed African Americans, they were in isolated urban communities, and you know majority of these were in very populated urban communities that the media and law enforcement can spin the narrative. It's very hard to do that when you had all nationalities witnessing another American, another human being being murdered right in front of them. I bet you that there were people standing there that probably had never witnessed a murder in their life, that had never seen a dead body. That in itself had an effect on the country, because our whole premise of this country has been built off of the revolution and off of domination. You know, they claim that America is the most dominant country in the entire world. But guess what? The rest of the world is looking at us like something does not look all that pretty over there, you know? And the viewing of all of this, because the difference, and Mark said it perfectly, you know, how many unrelated cases, I think it was Mark Alejandro, one of the how many unrelated cases that has not been filmed, or that how many people were harassed that we never got to see. But think about the first I guess the first eye opener of this whole scenario. When we think of George Floyd's situation, think about the 92 Watts riot, you know, and think about Rodney King. That was the first time it was publicly displayed. Like, you actually had footage that you saw law enforcement beating an unarmed black man. And that caused all of half of California to go uproar, you know, to ignite, you know. And so we are reliving this. The difference is that internet did not exist in 1992. 2020, internet is the main prominence of our world. It's how we function now. So because there are archives now of these injustice videos, there's archives of it now. You can erase, the government can erase it, but somebody has it on their cell phone. We have all these programs. You could just download a video you rip it right off the internet. And
once on the internet, it will be there forever.
Exactly. So going in, so to now go into my next question, this is for Mark.
Sure.
Do you feel the multiple protests that has been occurring across the country will make a difference, and why?
Well, you know, there's so many different types of protests. The ones that we're currently seeing televised, those have made very little difference. people speaking and voicing their opinions. I've participated in the past multiple times in different protests related to racial inequality. There's another form of protest that I think that can work, and it's very closely related to voting. I'm going to say, and it's not the voting that we might be thinking of, which we get into a booth and we pick somebody that we kind of don't know, but we can protest and we can vote with all of our senses. We can vote with our eyes, we can vote with our ears, we can vote with our mouth, and we can vote with our money. Now, really quick, we can vote with our eyes because we have to be open to what we are reading and what we are perceiving and who we are looking at and how we perceive them. We're voting with our ears because we need to hear people. We need to listen. You know, the three of us have spent a lot of time talking, but we are also going to be spending a lot more time listening and understanding what is happening around us.
Right.
We are voting with our mouths because what we're seeing and what we're hearing comes out of our mouth. The three of us have children. You have a child. And how I speak and what I say around them and the tone of my voice is going to affect them and how they are raised. I vote with my money because of the places that I go. Am I supporting Black communities, restaurants, bakeries, any products? Or, you know, am I going to the Black community and spending my money? Or am I spending my money in places that have continuously oppressed the Black community or have been silent?
Right.
You know, we talked about Colin Kaepernick. Nike made a huge stance by, you know, giving him a lot of money and giving him a platform. Does that mean that I should go support Nike? I don't know. I need to look into their history. I can't just see one campaign that worked for them. Or did it work?
Right.
And so the form of protest that's happening right now leads to what everybody needs to do when they go home, which is have these conversations, whether they're uncomfortable or not. You need to have them with your friends, with family, with people you don't know. We would love to hear from people after this and send us messages and tell us what we said that worked or didn't work, or what we did not say. Right. And people need to vote and protest every single day and make it their social life.
Right. And that's a good response, man, because you said it right on spot. You know, I was just going to say to all of my white friends that are listening to this right now, if we can support our Black communities, you know, if by supporting a Black owned business, going to support, you know, the Black musicians who are performing in your area, you know, giving back, like that's contributing to society. And I think that protest is good. I think protest is needed. I do think protest is a forum that gives civilians a voice and not having media speak for us in that respects. But I think now people have kind of lost sight of why they're protesting because of all the looting and the rioting. And it's like, okay, we know why, we understand the premise of, you know, why you're doing it, but you've lost sight of what the meaning behind the protest is, you know? And Mark said it perfect. He said the protest that we're dealing with now is for us to go back home and leave once we're done congregating with all the different nationalities and different other human beings we're having this interaction with on this stance, to go back home, pick up the phone, and me being a Black man, you know, calling my white friends and saying, hey, let's have this hard conversation for a second. You know, tell me what you really feel about Black people, and don't go into it with this pre-notion that you are going to be defensive. If you go into a situation already thinking defensively, you've lost. The meaning is already voided, because now there's no empowerment that's going to come out of that between the two of you as an understanding. Yes. You know what I'm saying? So That's a very great fact, man. I'm glad you said that because I think people really need to hear, why are we out here protesting? We're not protesting just for George Floyd. We're not protesting just for Tamir Rice or Eric Gardner or Mike Brown. We're not protesting just for Trayvon Martin, for these folks. We're protesting because Black America is tired of having to keep doing this. And it's like, okay, we've been doing it for a long time now. We've tried to be peaceful. You know what I'm saying? We've tried to walk in peace. We went through the civil rights movement. You know, I mentioned that Martin Luther King didn't raise his fist, didn't say a curse word, wasn't going off on the police. You know, he got beat up, he got put in jail, and yet he went right back out and did the same thing again. And it wasn't until they stood a stance all across America that the government had to fold. They could not resist it. They could not resist the people anymore. So if you're going to protest, like Mark said, make this be an everyday protest. That means when you get up and you see someone, a person of color, you speak to them. You actually say hi, even if it's uncomfortable for you to do that. You may never know that African-American that you might speak to might have just went through a situation prior. And just to have that sheer act of kindness and that understanding might change the difference, or vice versa.
Yes.
Like what I went through yesterday or 2 days ago. I went to Burger King and I took my son to go get some food, and I tried to buy some breakfast for a white woman who was behind me, and she called me the N-word for buying her food. I can't change. I personally, Brandon cannot change her and what she feels. I can change the narrative of how I respond as a Black man, because then that might trickle down to somebody else who sees that and say, well, why did he respond like that? He had every right to be angry. He had every right to go off on that woman for saying that to him. But what am I going to gain from that? Me, I'm still Black. I'm like, nothing's going to change out of me getting angry from it. She going to go about her day. Me,
that's why they do it too, you know, because they're trying to justify the fact that they call you something, to say like, oh, you see, he deserved to be called that. He deserved to be, you know, that's exactly the problem. That's, you know, my own 2 cents about the protests are that people communicate in different ways. There are some people that like to hear a message loud and clear, and they get it the first time. There's some people that just ignore you, which is kind of what's happening. A lot of people are just uncomfortable with the truth of what's going on in this country. Right. And it's a lot easier to say, well, here's my gun, it's bigger than yours, than sitting down face to face with somebody that you don't know and being told a truth. Nobody wants that. You know, everybody's always tiptoeing about these issues, thinking like, oh, well, you know, I don't want to make somebody uncomfortable. I'm guilty of that, you know, because as a Colombian, as I mentioned earlier, my position in the world for a long time was that, oh, you're a drug lord. You have drugs on you. You are here to do harm and to do these things. You must be related to Pablo Escobar. And nothing could be further from the truth. You know, I was a victim of that stuff that was happening in Colombia. It's just part of the reason why I'm here. But you always bring yourself down to that. You always see yourself as like, oh, well, you know, I need to blend in. I need to, you know, maybe I'll lose the accent. I lose the, you know, and it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it can be yourself.
I want to speak.
And
sorry, go ahead, Alejandro.
No, I was just going to say that it's partially that is the fact that you mentioned this when we were talking before. The society doesn't need to be homogenized. You know, it's about embracing our differences and respecting each other. That we're going to get a society that works together. It's not about like, hey, let's all act like white people or brown people or whatever. No, you can have your group of people that you hang out with. You have your group of friends that you like to hang out with. You're not forced to hang out with other people, but the more open-minded you are to other people's ideas and everything.
Right.
You think globally,
I want to
you know,
I want to speak to that. I want to speak to that briefly because, you know, we very much live in an I, me community, but we need to think of us as we. It's, you know, when I vote, I'm not voting for me, I'm voting for we. I may be okay, my neighbor may not. So about the incident that happened with you recently, Brandon, that woman probably didn't even realize that you both ended up living in the same time period, walked into the same Burger King, probably live in the same community, choosing the restaurant that you go to because, you know, you chose that, you received the same promotion. You are more closely related, the fact that you were there at the same time, than you are not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it baffles me every time you see these videos or you hear these stories that people are not thinking, or the person who is being extremely racist, it does not understand that the person they're speaking to is extremely similar to you and living, you know, equal lives.
Right.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that because when I said about homogenized society, I didn't mean that, you know, it means that everybody has to have the same rights, the basic rights. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the right to live, which is the part that's so infuriating, you know, that, you know, from, like I said, as a foreigner coming here and idolizing the United States growing up, to see that after Selma, after Emmett Till, you know, decades after all the civil rights movement and all that stuff, this is still happening is just, it's unbelievable to me. It's, you know, this is the first place I came that I felt okay leaving my car unlocked, you know, because in Colombia, you were always looking through your back to see who was going to stab you, or if there was a car bomb or stuff like that. And I can't believe that, you know, but there it was criminals trying to do that to you. Mm-hmm. I can't even begin to imagine how it feels for an American-born citizen to feel that fear from the people that are here to protect them, you know?
Right. Well, I got a bunch of people who are on live that are kind of commenting and I'm getting some questions in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask these last couple of questions here, and we'll open it up real quick. I want to get to Alejandro, since you had just spoken. Let me ask you, do you feel minorities are treated differently in the music industry?
I think, you know, that's an interesting thing because there's so, especially from Black music, it's been so influential in the last, you know, well, since jazz was born at the turn of the last century. Mm-hmm. Jazz has been Black music has been extremely influential from a bunch of different perspectives. You know, we're talking about Latin music as well, coming in from a different, and, you know, some of the biggest artists of past generations and our generation are Black artists. Now, I think to a certain extent, they are being taken advantage of, you know. I think there's a tendency to see like, well, you fit this specific thing, so stay in that bubble. Don't you dare go in here, or, you know, the music industry can be. I guess it depends what level of the music industry we're talking about. Mm-hmm. You know, because for the most part, when you're, you know, most of us just play jazz gigs and are with very open-minded musicians that don't really see you by where you're from or what your color is or your gender. But, you know, I think at the higher level, you're still, you know, there's still a lot of kind of what I said, more being taken advantage of, and discrimination to a different extent, you know, kind of like, okay, we found a place.
Higher level,
you're here to entertain us. Keep that place. Don't say anything else, you know, kind of like.
When you switch from the entertainment side to the business side, you see much more a divide. There are less representation of Black and brown bodies in business ownership and record label executives and promotion, people who live in the business world of music. There's less and less Black and brown people in those. There's more Black and brown artists than there are label owners and publishing and promotion PR companies. Just like in the NFL, right? There's lots of Black and brown people that play, that are sacrificing their bodies there on the field. But as you go to the executives and owners, you know, how many Black owners of NFL teams do we have? They're
Right.
certainly not equally represented to the percentage that we have in America of
Right.
African American and brown people.
Yeah, and I, we was talking briefly earlier, and I had mentioned about how, if you think about who benefits, if minorities are treated differently, I think it's a psychological difference, because psychologically, rappers, if you take the whole collection of what the imagery of what rappers look like, we're African American. But white America supports that. They buy their albums, they go to their shows, they go to their tour, they're buying their merch. And you see them, you see Black people who thrive off of that. But then let's take someone like us who are jazz musicians, which jazz in terms of popularity is at the lower scale than if you look at pop music in general, just in the general compass umbrella. Not saying that jazz isn't popular, but if you look at record sales, if you look at spins, if you look at very marketing promotions and things of such, it's more pop oriented, or it has other genres that have a bigger influence. Why? Because it's generating money. And so you would think the first form of American music was Black music, which was jazz, would be generating that kind of money and success, which it did. But since the times have changed, which again, internet affects that, right? And it takes away the livelihood. So I look at the comparison when I've had people tell me like, oh, Black people don't, Black people don't have certain privileges when it comes in the music industry. I said, oh, that's a lie, because the privilege that we have to share our music to others, that's our privilege of letting you guys accept our music and take it in and make a commodity off it and make a good living off of it. Because that's exactly what you're explaining. The higher execs are the ones that are getting the billions and the billions and the billions and billions of dollars. And how many, musicians that sign a contract and they pretty much signed their whole life away, and then you think they're balling, you think they're rich and successful, and really they're not. They're broke, So it's a common trend that kind of spreads around, and I think this is also a conversation that needs to happen within the music industry. I'm so glad that we did the Blackout Tuesday yesterday. That was a sign that the industry has woken, or at least went like this. This is very hard for
Yeah.
So and to conclude, my last question, I want to conclude because I want to get some of these questions in before I have to go. But how do you think our musical influences can bring unity during this emotional time? And just give me a brief answer on that from the three of you.
John, go ahead.
My calling in life is to be a musician, to be involved in music and to do this. And like the song goes, this is my light. This is this little light of mine, and I'm going to let it shine. And hopefully I can shine some love into other people's lives, and I can inspire. My goal and my hope is that at least one person can feel happy and inspired by what I do, and they can take that and pay it forward.
Okay. What about you, Alejandro?
Same thing for me. I mean, I think you summed it up best when we were talking about the difficult subjects, and you heard, when we started listening to Isaac Hayes, Never Can Say Goodbye, and we were all just like, oh, okay, it's you get this, it's an escape. It's not ignoring the problems, but our job, just like there's people that make this, build the buildings that we live in and all that stuff. As musicians, I feel that's our job, to be able to provide something for people to escape and to look at and listen to and feel happy, feel different emotions, even if it's momentarily. So I think that's where all of our influences and covering from all angles, that's what we can offer, at least.
Sure. Okay. And Mark?
Yeah, I feel like music and rhythm is actually the same all over the world. It's just when different cultures have changed or shifted, they're called different names, right? So
Right.
salsa rhythms are the same in different countries, just with a different rhythm,
Right.
which is even, more of a fact that we're saying that we are so related to each other as humans. And related to what John was saying, I personally sing the same 2 songs to my daughter who just turned 1 every time she goes to a nap or when she goes to sleep. And when I'm singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, it is so comforting and warm. And it has nothing to do with the lyrics because she doesn't know what the words are. I don't even know all the verses. But it vibrates within her and myself. I feel more comfortable. And so I feel fortunate to get to share the music that I feel that vibrates with myself, with other humans. And I'm hoping that it vibrates with them in such a way that they feel comforted, or they feel some sort of action within the song, because not all music needs to be comforting. It can make you feel uncomfortable. We just recorded a new album, and on one of these tracks, we have a song that John wrote called "The Sundering," which really does speak to about. I'd let John speak about it, but it is a call to action, and it's an emotional song that when we play it, it's not supposed to be comfortable.
Right. And I didn't know if John, if you did want to make a quick comment on that, or.
Yeah, I wrote that song for the immigrant children who are being separated from their parents. Every country has the right to enforce their boundaries however they want to.
Right.
But once you have human bodies in your custody, you need to treat them humanitarianly, in a humanitarian way. Right. Treat them with love and respect, even if you don't agree why they're there to begin with.
Right.
Different, the rule, I'm not either for or against the rules. I'm just how we treat them when they are in our hands. And that could have been me. I came from Mexico. I was incredibly fortunate to have been born an American citizen and a Mexican citizen at the same time. So I used to, the way that I would go to the United States was by literally walking through the border from Matamoros to Brownsville in Texas, the very place where they're hosting these people while they're waiting for their asylum status. And they're just sitting there, and there's not enough resources for them. And so I wrote this song in thinking of them and thinking that could have been me.
Well, thank you, man. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad that the 3 of you guys collectively, as men, as friends, as bandmates, have, been open to address the issue head on without being afraid of what others might feel or think about your opinion on it, because, they know you. And I think that's why a lot of people were silent for a while, because they were just afraid of, the backlash of people in their circle might feel. But me, quite frankly, I don't care anymore. I've said it. I've even said it to people who I'm real close to that know me, that talk to me, and they get it. They didn't question me. I said, I really don't care. If I've never talked to you again, I would not be bothered by it, because I'm just tired of people blatantly being in your face like they care, and they really don't. They really don't care. So on that note,
can I say something about that?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I've only been using my voice in this way recently. I never considered myself an activist before. I've talked about Alzheimer's disease. I talk about science, a little bit about Latino arts and culture. But to be part of an issue that is polarizing and it's difficult to speak with, I haven't done that in the past. And it certainly is much easier to do right now when lots of other people are starting to speak out about it. But for me, I need to, educate myself a lot more on this issue, try to understand better how we got to this point, there's a lot of history to study and to learn and to talk about this, not just right now when it's easy, right now when there's lots of people posting about Black Lives Matter, when you see the protests on TV, when you see the video of George Floyd a million times, right now it's easy to talk about it. But we need, a year from now, when people are talking about the election or people are talking about something else, we need to continue to bring awareness to this issue. This is,
Right.
I feel that Black people have been talking about this for a long time, and I think it's up to white people to start making this their problem and say, hey, we want to solve this for our brothers and sisters and however they see themselves gender-wise. They're part of our community.
Mm-hmm.
How can we help make them feel the same? How can we stand up for their rights and say, I want them to have the same American experience that I do. I want them to have the same police experience that I do. I want them to have the same educational experience that I do.
Right.
How and continue to talk about that, and just not just do it when it's easy.
Yeah, and everybody who's watching this right now, I'm going to encourage you guys, like I said in my last video, to this week and from here on out, let's do hashtag one act of kindness. And that's going to be something that I'm going to start doing. I'm going to try to start this movement of hashtag one act of kindness. And it starts with just one little small gesture. If it's you opening the door for somebody, if it's you, like I try to, paying for somebody's meal, if it's you smiling at somebody, if it's you asking if somebody needs help, or if you're driving, you see somebody on the side of the road and it's daylight, of course, hopefully, but they're driving the side of the road and they got a flat, you pull over, you actually help. Let's actually start taking initiatives. You'd be surprised how gravitating and that synergy will start to spread it out into the atmosphere, and people will feel that, so that's something that's really important that we're missing right now. It's just that gratitude. It's the gratitude that all humans we all share. We all bleed red. All our blood is red, right? Okay. We all came out the same way, and we're all going to go out the same way. We have a lot more common similarities as human beings than we realize. But I want to ask this one question. I got one question that came in from our good friend Mr. Suggs, James. I don't know if he's still on here or not.
He's here.
He is. Let me James, are you on, James? Can you James,
I'm here.
Hey man, can you is there any way you can share your video?
Oh, I didn't do my hair.
You may be naked, so
No, it's cool, man. He's sitting in the comfort of his home. It's all good. So James, man, I'm gonna ask. I'll ask the question for you, but James had a question for you guys. And do you think these events are sparked by fear of other people and cultures, and is our current COVID fear adding to the tension?
I think so. I think there's definitely. I mean, there was a growing sense with the whole virus thing that everybody was just in a very different mindset. Everybody was just at home, stressed, incredibly stressed. Losing their job. And I think yes, I don't think it's independent from that. I think I mean, you even mentioned it with some of the people that were rioting and looting, that there's some troublemakers there that just want to, that maybe just bored from sitting at home,
Mm-hmm.
and taking advantage of the situation. So I do think that is, I think it's a combination of things, the virus, the lack of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to name any names, but the lack of leadership at the top is something that's causing division.
Right.
It has been causing division for a while now. So I think that's why it's a lot harder to reconcile that. And I think that's why people want action and permanent change.
Mm-hmm.
Because when a matter of life or death, of the right to live, should not be a political issue. It should be a human issue that any political party should agree on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it absolutely comes from a place of fear, to answer part of the question. And that goes back to the day the ships landed here in the United States. The fear of somebody, of this group of people that you rounded up and brought somewhere else. How are they going to react? And that inherently has been passed down from generation to generation of white people. And this is coming from a place of fear. And if it wasn't the pandemic, it was going to be something else that we could blame, you know, people being more fear. You know, we could blame one person and leader. That's a very small part of it. But there is a large group of people, and it's all throughout the world as well now, coming from a place of fear.
But certainly COVID has added to this, because COVID is proportionately affecting Black people in general. It really has been. And so here's a tweet by Ibram Kendi. He has a great book called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And it says, it feels like Black people were running for their lives from racist terror, only to run into the murderous face of COVID-19, only to start running for their lives from COVID-19, only to run into the murderous face of racist terror.
So it's a repeated cycle, in other words.
It's a cycle. It's like
a cycle,
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy is that fear. Down here, we have a wonderful news station, Wink News. I think y'all might have a Wink News up there in Tampa. But down here, Wink News is really good about, you know, staying on top of things that are happening in the community and the nation. And they have this tagline: when COVID first hit, they say facts, not fear. That they would flash that really big on the screen before they would go into the segment. It'll say Wink News, COVID-19 update, facts, not fear. And if I were to break down the two words, facts and fear, if you think about why they put facts in front of the word fear, it's because they want the public to know that what we are providing you is factual information that we have researched, so you could have less of a fear of this perception that you assume that this is how it really is. Now, obviously, the media can tell us whatever they want to tell us. So I take that with a grain of salt. But I also look at life as a Black man. If I am educated enough to lean on the facts, it makes me less fearful of speaking up to the oppressors, you know, the people who are trying to oppress me. You know, when someone says that I'm not educated and then they speak to me and then they realize that they can have a cohesive, very intuitively conversation without it going all over the place, you know, I'm giving you facts. When you ask, what's my name? My name is Brandon Robertson. That's a fact. That's not something that's an opinion.
Up for debate. Yeah,
for debate. So I'm Black. That's a fact. You can't debate that, right? You're white. That's a fact. We can't debate that. So now that we've gotten past that, it's almost like when you're being bullied and then you finally start to laugh at the bully, and then the bully looks at you crazy, like, what's wrong with you? You're a weirdo. Why are you acting wild like this? Because I want you to know that I'm not afraid of you. And the only way I can get you fearing me is if I do the same thing to you that you're doing to me. So James's question for me to answer that is COVID didn't add an extra layer of added fear. It was the authority that added that extra layer of fear to the community, saying, we have all these protesters gathering in large groups and we have a COVID epidemic. So now people are getting each other sick, right? So again, it's all perception and it's twisted and it's the wording. And so if you go to church and, you know, I will throw religious in here because I know some people don't like to talk about religious, but I am a Christian. I love Jesus Christ. I am a God-fearing man. I'm not afraid to say that. I say it very proudly and honorable, and I mean it. And if people get offended by it, I don't care. However, I know that we need We need godly love in our hearts, in our nation right now. We cannot get through this without prayer. We cannot get through this without the agape love that God has provided for our world. We won't get through this. And people will say, well, I'm atheist. I don't believe in that stuff, and it's all good, whatever. I'm not trying to bestow my religion on anyone, but I will speak very freely because I have the right as my First Amendment to speak freely, to say that we are going through some very dark times right now, and we need uplifting, and that takes the people. It takes the people. Okay. It takes the people. If you read the Bible and if you read the stories and you see how all in the Old Testament, how all of these situations, these situational things that were happening within cultures and different wars and territorial play, it's all the same thing that we are dealing with currently in 2020. The difference, the big difference is that now people are instilling people. When I say people, government, people with authority, they're instilling fear to make us lose sight of the main picture. So that's why I commend you three brothers for not holding your tongues. That's why I commend all of my brothers and sisters who have been speaking up. I could even commend white America of those who have actually taken the stance to step up, you know, because until we all decide as a globe, as a whole, when we decide as a whole that we're tired of this is going to keep happening. And Mark, I want to end on this note. You said something earlier that I was about to, it was a perfect way for me to wrap up the show. Everybody that's watching this right now, if you're watching this on Facebook, I need you to do me one favor, okay? I need you to call everybody in your circle, and you need to ask them if they're registered to vote. And if they're not registered to vote, you need to tell them that they need to register to vote. Because the only way the African-American community is going to get heard, the only way the people of color are actually going to have a voice and a stance, we have to do exactly what we claimed to have done when we voted for Obama. And the sad part, and this is going to probably make somebody mad when I say this, the sad part about that voting is because there was two types of voting in that situation. We voted because we wanted the black person in office, but then we voted because of how society has projected that we could never reach it there. We wanted to see it happen. We wanted to be part of history. But then we also lose sight of, well, are we voting in the right person? Now, I'm not going against Obama. What I'm saying is that when we vote this time, please make sure that you're voting for the right reason and not just because we're trying to get our current leadership out of office. Make sure that you're going to vote for the right reason. Look up the laws that are trying to be passed. Look up the different entities that both parties are speaking about and make an assumption. Obviously, to the black community, we say we don't want our current leader in office anymore. Okay. So whoever you're going to vote in next, we need to make sure that we're going to vote in the right person. There's going to be corruption. We can't get around that. This is the world we live in right now. But if you're going to vote, please make sure you educate yourself on what you're voting for. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure that the reason why our current leader won was because people did not educate themselves on what they were going to be voting for. You saw what was on the media. You don't want to deal with it. You thought it was going to work itself out, and it backfired on us. So now look, we have a leader who supports white supremacy, who said on record, these are good people, but then tweeted, these looters and peoples are thugs. Do you guys not read between the lines on that? So if you want this injustice to stop, aside from us protesting, like Mark said, you need to protest every day. Make sure you are registered to vote, and make sure you go and vote in November and vote for the things that are going to matter. And we need to speak our voices so then our current runners who are running for presidency understand this is what we want. You are not going to get my vote if this is not what I'm going to get. We have to demand that. So on that note, guys, if you have anything else left that you want to end on, I'll leave it up. I'll leave the floor to you all, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much to you, Brandon, for having us. your voice is very strong in our community, not only about the issues we spoke about today, but musically, and we respect you for that, and we appreciate being on this show, and we hope that everybody here who joined us can share this video. I think it was a very open conversation for all ages, and this can be shared within our community, and also to support the music community as well. We talked a little bit about music, and to continue supporting the artists, because you know, it is changing. It has changed overnight, and it's going to be changing quite a bit over the next few years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fellas, anybody else?
Yeah, no, I'm just thank you so much, Brandon. Keep doing what you're doing, man. You know, we got to stay in this together, and we the only way we can get through this is together, and that's how we enact change. Together we stand. You know,
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. And so
Right.
I am very happy that you had us to have this conversation from 3 different perspectives, as 3 people that have been together, 3 very different personalities, and we've been together for a long time, and we're very different people from very different cultures, but we understand what it takes to work together to create something bigger than ourselves, because that's the only way to do it, you know, working together. So thank you, man.
And if I could add one thing, would be to, you know, that this thing is a marathon. Us standing up for equality is a marathon, and we have to think about the long picture. I know for myself and for many people who are part of the white majority, we need to educate ourselves more. We need to read more. We need to have more conversations. Yes. We have to. We need to go out and protest and demand that this equality happens, and to continue to do it for the long haul. And to we can no longer afford to be silent. We can no longer be like, oh, somebody will do this. Somebody will take care of this, because nobody has. And it's been the entire history of our country. And here we are. How much longer? Do we want to wait another 100 years? When do we say enough is enough, and we have to make this part of our identity as artists and as public personas? And you know,
yes, education, inform yourself, find the sources, find the right sources. Don't just look at memes and assume it's the truth just because it's in social media. We have access, infinite access to information, more than ever in humanity. Let's take advantage of it, please.
Yes. and I want to end on a note to thank my guest, the La Lucha. Please support these brothers. These brothers got a new record coming out. When is it coming out, by the way? When is it coming out?
June
it's
12th.
Already out. June 12th?
Yeah.
June 12th, yeah.
June 12th. Okay. There you go. Yes. Hold on. Let me stop talking so Mark can see it.
9 days.
So that, yeah.
June 12th on Arbor's Records. And our next single comes out this Friday, featuring Melissa Aldana on saxophone.
Nice. And guys, please continue to represent the Black Lives Matter. I know people are going to say all lives matter, but that's not the case. Don't deter it from the subject. Black lives do matter, because that's what's being affected right now. And for those who are going to keep throwing that out there, saying that all lives matter, okay, we get
it. That's the point.
But that's
of course, all life matters. That's not the point.
That's not
the point. Is bringing awareness to those who are being underrepresented, who are having less than equal rights, less than an equal experience.
Right. And everybody, if you're joining me, I'm gonna end on this note. If you are serious about making change with me, if you know Brandon and you know that I'm using my voice, because most of y'all know me knows that I like to talk. I could talk your ear off. I could talk you under the table any day, right? I'm gonna speak. I'm gonna open my big old mouth, and I'm gonna continue to open my big old mouth. So I need everybody to yell it loud with me, and I want you all to do #1 act of kindness. And you don't need to display it on Facebook. You don't need to go on social media and let everybody know so you can get 1,000 likes that you did something nice. No, do it for you. Do it for your spirit. Do it for your own self-evaluation as a human being. Do it so you can start satisfying the fact that you are a good person and you want to live good. So when I say hashtag one act of kindness, that doesn't mean to sit there and say that I have to put it out there to the world all the time. God's going to bless you for that. He's going to expose that blessing to others. You don't need to make that known. Okay. So just make sure that you love someone, that you pick up the phone, you call your people of color, friends and family members, you call them, you check on them, and you let them know I am here to talk, and I want to talk, and I want to get answers that I need so I can understand. And once we start doing that, then we will actually start to see progress. So on that note, everybody, thank you all for joining my third episode of Brandon Robertson Soul Hour. Next week, I'll be joined by my really, really dear close friend, Corey Barnett. He is also a musician and a professional dancer. He is one of the most killing break dancers I know. That's my dude. And he'll be on the show next Tuesday at noon. Thank you all again to La Lucha. I appreciate you. I love you, brothers. And everybody stay blessed. And talk to y'all later. We'll see you guys next week.